Welcome to History Tidbits number 16, Chilkat Blankets and Weaving. History Tidbits are a program of the Haynes Sheldon. Whoop, are we live now? Okay. Welcome to History Tidbit number 16, Chilkat Blankets and Weaving. History Tidbits are a program of the Haynes Sheldon Museum. I'm your guest speaker, Ellen Carrlee. I'm the conservator at the Alaska State Museum in Juneau. Like Haynes, Juneau is on Tlingit land, in our case, the Occoquan Tlingit people. This is a photo of Clara Newman Benson at her loom. She was a Tlingit weaver of the Gannochtay clan of Clackawan. Haynes and Clackawan are in the Chilkat Valley, a historically powerful region for trade. Weavers here were especially prolific at weaving these textiles, which is why they're called Chilkat. In Alaska, Chilkat textiles are woven by the Tlingit, the Haida, and the Tsimshian peoples. When Clara Brown was alive, ethnographer George Thornton Emmons wrote that only about 12 living women at that time had made a Chilkat robe. That's still true today. While hundreds of people know the technique, only about a dozen have completed a full-sized robe, which takes more than a year. For more information on historic weavers, check out the work of Zachary Jones in the links. Today, I'll orient you a bit to what these magnificent textiles look like. But objects are important because objects are important to people. The key thing is not just what they look like, but what they do. So I want to also emphasize the living culture. Here's an example of a Chilkat robe. You'll see black and yellow borders, a design field in the center using white, black, yellow, and blue-green, and fringe. This design is an abstract diving whale pattern using curves and shapes based on form line. The diving whale design could be used by either the raven or eagle moiety of the culture. Many Northwest Coast cultures have moieties or two balanced social groups. This robe includes two less abstract killer whales. Usually crest animals, like killer whales, belong to a clan. This time, the killer whales belong to the eagle moiety. Here's another robe. This time the killer whales and the eagle appear on a field of white. Styles and designs have been written about by scholars like Cheryl Samuel and Bill Home. The Chilkat techniques include twining, seen here on the right in the yellow area, and braids that outline and define the shapes. Braids are done simultaneously as the twining goes along. Chilkat weaving is known as the only weaving technology that can weave a perfect circle. This is how. On the back, only the twining is visible, not the braids. So you see, the twining gives general form, while the braiding refines it. The combination of twining and braids makes woven curves possible. This robe is an unidentified crest animal in the center. Look at the claw near the middle and the subdivided areas to your right. I'm going to flip the robe. Look, the claw has far less detail and the color areas on the right have no outlines. Now I'll flip it back. These robes were intended to be danced in ceremony, and as such, the fringe and its movement is particularly important. Check out the link to Tsimshian weaver Willie White's description about robes being danced. Here's the fringe up close. You'll see the warp fringe has cedar bark in it. This gives the robe strength and structure and even repels insects. Warp twining holds the upper part of the warp fringe in a flat plane. Those are the yellow lines you see. While the warp fringe goes all the way through to the top of the textile, the false fringe is just added on at the bottom separately. It has no cedar in it and it's lighter. It moves more. The fringe below the side braids also has more movement. Old robes often have damage in these areas. Chilkat weavings are wool, historically mountain goat, but also commercial sheep wool. The warp is thigh spun with cedar bark. Wefts, which in weaving go from weft to right, were the colored elements. Many robes have hand-dyed wool. On the right, you see the hands of Lily Hope, making yellow dye from wolf moss. I'll include a link to one of Lily's many engaging videos about the meaning and methods of Chilkat weaving. This weaving kit at the Alaska State Museum is featured on our Facebook page. Weaving ties together a network of people to harvest and prepare the raw materials, often women, and usually the men make the looms, the pattern boards, and the design templates. Weaving is the product of and a means to connecting people in a web of relationships. I recommend listening to the new series of videos by Haida weaver Evelyn Vanderhoop as she blends history and cultural lessons into her weaving demonstrations. This is the display about weaving at the Alaska State Museum. When it was installed in 2016, repairs were needed to stabilize this robe. We hired weaver Anna Brown Ellers to do that work. She's in the front of this picture in the black shirt. Next to her is her daughter Alexis, and her apprentice Daryl Harmon is taking notes. On the right side of this slide are two of the many robes Anna has woven. When Anna came to do that work in my lab, she brought many items. The items on the back table were made by Anna's mentors and teachers, and having those things in the lab brought their presence with her when she did her work. At the front is the cedar bark and the wool used to spin the warp. Together, Anna and I wrote a paper about her treatment choices that will be in the Alaska Journal of Anthropology this summer. The larger weaving on the table in the picture is particularly special. Historically, Chilkat robes were sometimes cut apart and distributed at the memorial service of a deceased person. These pieces were then often incorporated into other regalia, such as the border on the robe on the left of this slide, or the vest on the right slide that's being studied by weavers. In the center is a piece of the robe woven by Anna for the memorial of her father, Austin Brown, in 2007. It was the first time in decades that a robe had been ceremonially cut. In recent times, a new tradition has arisen where weavers produce small textiles to be joined together in a new robe, often with a healing purpose, or robes may be woven collaboratively by a group of weavers. Innovation and the past come together in what weavers know. And to get a glimpse, check out the link to Susie Williams' sharing about the esoteric knowledge of weavers. This is a very old robe at the Sheldon Jackson Museum in Sitka, and it was collected by William Henry Seward, who helped the U.S. buy Alaska from Russia in 1867. You can see it is very faded, especially compared to the objects on the curator's desk behind the table. Natural dyes tend to fade quite a bit. Here's a robe, also in the Sheldon Jackson collection in Sitka, where the black dye appears to have severely weakened the woolen fibers and only the brown areas. Many weavers today are interested in the choices of past weavers and the choices available today. Some weavers have been dyeing experimentally to study what plants and minerals from the land were used. Samples from these experiments, along with samples from historic robes, have been sent to chemists at Portland State University for analysis. We're hoping this research reveals patterns to identify who wove certain robes, where they might be from, or to suggest how old they might be. We call this the Chilkat Dye Working Group. This is a collaboration of 10 or 15 weavers who meet monthly at the Alaska State Museum. Two of them, Lyanna Wallace and Lily Hope, were joined by chemist Tammy Lassiter-Clare for a presentation about this research. I'll share the link. I want you to know, though, during our meetings, this group talks about so much more than just dyes. They share stories, they sing, they discuss food and harvesting, tea, medicines, wellness. They talk about the language and new projects, coping strategies and struggles. They talk about death and the spirit world, babies, kids, grandkids, ceremony, and community. They laugh a lot, and all of this is part of weaving. Chilkat weavers today continue to innovate and have connection to the raw materials from the land, as well as a robust and resilient network of relationships, the scope of which I barely touched on in this tidbit. I hope you'll check out the words of the weavers themselves in the links. Thanks for watching.